And again,
We have offered to talk to everybody about what your policies are, who's going to be in your cabinet. Do you want to hear any of our takes on policy and what might work? We've open sourced our platform very proudly. And I will say that Trump has taken genuine, sincere interest in our policies around chronic disease. He takes it seriously. For that reason, I think it behooves us to sit and see if we can actually make some real change. And if that is a unity party, I think that it is something that we absolutely owe to the American public to explore.
What would a unity party look like?
I think it would be on day one making sure that our health, the arm of the government responsible for health, HHS, is directed by someone we can trust, someone without ties to big pharma, someone who understands the foundations of and preconditions of healthy life, somebody who is not going to sell out our children to profiteering.
Okay, when would you guys make that decision? There's obviously huge concerns that you guys are a spoiler candidate. And so I understand there'll be a public facing message, but I'm very curious how you guys think about that.
We did not start this campaign. I did not put in tens of millions of dollars to be a spoiler candidate. I put in tens of $millions to win, to fix this country, to do the right thing. I will say that Clear Choice, this PAC, this DNC aligned PAC that was created specifically to take us out, has spent millions of dollars to take us out. They have unfortunately turned us into a spoiler. And we don't want to be a spoiler. We wanted to win. We wanted a fair shot. The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us. I mean, the extent by which the sabotage they've unleashed upon us, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways that they have sabotaged us. I really wanted a fair shot at this election, and I believed in the America that a little girl pledged an allegiance to. And that is not where we are today, and it's not because of the Republican Party taking us out. It is exclusively because of the Democratic Party taking us out. And I am so disappointed I ever helped them. I am so disappointed that I helped Chuck Schumer in that Georgia runoff secure a majority. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And it's really devastating. So to answer your question, we are not spoilers. That was never our motivation. We really wanted a fair shot. I think had we had a fair shot, we would have won. I still would love to see in the last 80 days of this election some miracle play out where we get a chance to debate. I don't think they're going to let us. And, given this, I think we are taking a very serious look at making sure that the people that have corrupted our fair and free democracy do not end up in office in November. It's hard. I mean, it's really hard, Tom, to say these words because it's also acknowledging how bad things are.
There it is. I'm going to stop that one right there. Got another one, the big one, the 9-minute one. I wanted to play it in the proper context so that we could really understand what the real thing was. This wasn't because the news media, obviously, the news we're hearing is RFK is considering dropping out and joining Trump. Well, he hasn't said that yet. His vice presidential candidate has said that, which is a big deal. but the headline should not be that that's what Kennedy says. He has not said that yet. Maybe he will say it later. We'll see. The 9-minute clip is definitely, there's a lot more to it. And I've been, usually when something is not accurate, usually Kennedy will come out and say it, right? He'll come out. So I've been following his Twitter, and he hasn't talked about that yet. But that's because he's kind of busy. So I'm going to play a little bit of that too, because he's got these legal challenges with these states after doing everything right, playing by the book, and getting all of the necessary people, going through all of the different hoops to get on the 50 states, to get on the ballot in all 50 states and DC. And he did it. And now they're doing this to him. More games. It's just so frustrating. But it's good to see it. It's good to see it. And because we know it, when we see it and we know exactly what's going on here, they want to make it almost impossible for anyone outside of the two-party system to run. You could even go further and say it doesn't matter. Unless it's their people, that's what they want. They're going to try to keep them out. And I don't believe Trump is a part of that, but I'm going to play some of this. This is where Kennedy is today.
Hey, everybody. I'm at the state courthouse in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania this morning. I'm supposed to be in a meeting with community leaders on the south side of Chicago today, talking about criminal justice reform. But I had to come here because the Democratic Party is suing me in Pennsylvania. And by the way,
this is more election interference here, just like what they did with President Trump, trying to keep him wrapped up in court cases so he couldn't be out there on the campaign trail. They're doing the exact same thing to RFK Jr. too, because it's not their guy. It's not the one that they want in. They have chosen ones. They have their chosen ones, and I don't believe it's Kennedy or Trump. And that's why I like them both. That's one of the reasons why I like them both. But I feel like there's something very different with these two people. But it's so crazy how similar some of these things they try to do to Kennedy and to Trump. It's so similar. Keeping him wrapped up so he can't be out there on the campaign trail. That's called election interference, right?
Tomorrow I'm going to Mineola, Long Island, because they're suing me there too. They're suing me all over the country. They're trying to keep me off the ballot. Unfortunately, in some of these states, we're running into judges who are highly politicized and who are very, very sympathetic, let me put it that way, to the DNC. And today, the judge was less than sympathetic to our side. I came down from Boston this morning. I was supposed to get here last night. We had the whole day set aside for my testimony and for the testimony of Nick Brenna, who is our ballot access director, who stayed the night here in Harrisburg. But I was supposed to come last night, but my plane got canceled because of weather. So I got up at 4 o'clock this morning, and I made it here by 11:30. But the judge said that because I was late, that I was not going to get a chance to testify. So my testimony, which was critical to this case, was excluded, and she wouldn't even let Nick Brenna testify, even though he was sequestered. So he wasn't supposed to be in the courtroom. He was sequestered a few minutes away at a hotel, and he could have been there in minutes, literally. But the judge said because he wasn't there at that time, that she wasn't going to let him testify. We may lose this case on the state level. We will definitely win it on appeal. And here's why. There's two cases that are exactly on point that are Supreme Court cases. One of them is from 40 years ago. It's called Anderson versus Celebrezzi. And that case, you remember John Anderson, some of you, who was an independent who ran against Ronald Reagan. And he announced his candidacy after the conventions. And so he was very late, and he was late getting on some state court ballots. The deadline had already passed. The deadline passes before the conventions in many states. And so those states said, you can't get on. You missed the statutory deadline. The Supreme Court said you can't do that. That the 12th Amendment says there's only 3 requirements for being president: that you're 35 years of age, you were born here, and that you're currently a citizen. That's it. That the states are not allowed to put additional burdens on that would create a patchwork across the country. That case said there's only one national election. And if states are allowed to exclude people arbitrarily from the ballots, that it deprives people in every state of the ability to vote in a national election and have their vote be meaningful and have their vote count. That's a 40-year-old case, and that case was upheld again by the current Supreme Court in the case called Trump versus Anderson, which is in no relation with that Anderson. That was the Colorado case, if you remember, where Colorado tried to exclude President Trump because of his involvement in January 6th. And again, that case cited the old John Anderson versus Celebrezzi case and said the states can't do that. You cannot create that kind of patchwork. And the pretext for keeping me off the ballot here is the pretext that I put down the wrong state. That I claim to be a New York State resident wrongly. But as I explained in an earlier video, I have 3 potential residents in Massachusetts. I own a house for many years, a family, a home in California, where I moved in 2014 with Cheryl, and then I have a rental property in New York, but I've always considered myself a New Yorker, and my car is licensed in New York. My bar license to practice law is in New York, not in California. My law office is in New York. I pay taxes in New York. I've always voted. I don't vote in any other state. And there are many states where the state that you have to put on as your domicile is the state where you vote. For example, in Maine and also New Hampshire, I had to take an oath when I did the ballot access petitions in New Hampshire saying that my domicile in New York was the place I voted. So I didn't have any choice but to put New York for every state, because you can't put inconsistent states across the country. And so I'm going to win this. I would say, I never tell a client this as an attorney, but I'm telling you this, that we have a 100% chance of winning and getting on these ballots. We're going to win the appeals in these cases. That sometimes we have to get by these the lower court judges that, in many cases like Pennsylvania, are elected judges and rely heavily on the Democratic Party. And so we will win this. But it's costing us millions of dollars to defend these cases. And of course, that's what the Democratic Party wants. And it's an irony to me that the DNC is meeting right now in Chicago.
And it's costing him time, too. Again, it's time he should be out there on this campaign trail. It's so infuriating. But it's just what they're doing to Trump. It's the same thing. They're fighting 2 different fronts. That usually doesn't work out well for the person fighting on 2 different fronts. And you got 2 very big fronts here. You got Kennedy and Trump that you're battling against now. That's war.
Where I was supposed to be. And that everybody's talking about joy and about the need to elect Democrats in order to protect voting rights. And, my father, my uncle, the Democratic Party that they were members of, was a Democratic Party that was at the forefront of making sure that every American could vote for the candidate that they wanted to. But today, the Democratic Party is doing the opposite. It's disenfranchising millions of Americans. There are 1 million Americans signed ballot petitions, more than any other candidate in history, to get me on the ballot. That's never happened before. And there's tens of millions of Americans that want to vote for me, and they're being disenfranchised. the Democrat, according to the recent Gallup poll, the Democratic Party is 23% of the American electorate. The Republican Party is 25%. But 51% of the Americans consider themselves independent. So the Democratic Party is trying to disenfranchise 51% of the American people. And that is completely inconsistent with the Democratic Party that I grew up with. I don't think my father or my uncle would recognize this Democratic Party for that and for many other reasons, for the complicity with censorship. They were part of the Democratic Party that was against war, and this Democratic Party is part of the war machine. The betrayal, I would say, of the values of the affiliation of the Democratic Party with working Americans, with cops, with firefighters, with union people, and its new affiliation with big tech, with Wall Street, with big data, big pharma, and this corrupt merger of state and corporate power. So I'm a little disillusioned with the Democratic Party today, but that's why I decided to run as an independent. And God bless all of you, and God bless America.
Amen. Well, there you have it, right from Mr. RFK Jr. That was earlier this morning. What a crazy thing. He's in court today. He's going to be in court tomorrow. I mean, on and on and on. So it's not surprising when you hear his vice president. She sounds a little down. She does, right? She really sounds a little down. I'm not big on facial expressions or body language or anything like that, but looking at the voice, the eyes are always like that. She looks like she's always high. I'm sure I'm not saying she is or anything, but she just has that glossy eye look. It's just her natural look for some people. I haven't seen it change. It's been very consistent from what I've seen. But the more I listen to this lady, the more that I do like her. I like what she's saying. I like how she thinks. I like how she stands. I like this version of Nicole Shanahan. I think this version this is her finding her spot. She's finding her place. In the next clip, she's going to mention obviously a few very important things. One of the things that she does mention is about 2026 in California and getting a good candidate to run for governor. Now, the question got brought up about her maybe running for governor in 2026. But for me, the real question, and I'm sure you may feel the same way, the real question is, could RFK Jr. run for governor in 2026 in California? Since he is a dual resident, he's got residency here, residency there. You know, nobody ever talked about Hillary Clinton's, her residency when she all of a sudden moved to New York, or right, just to so that she could run in that state. I don't know. I remember reading those stories. I don't know how accurate they are. It's hard to believe anything nowadays, but that's why I like just listening to what they say and just going with that. The headlines, especially, unless you got some good trusted news sites that you go to, the headlines, no matter who it is, can be just kind of weird, just a lot of clickbait. You know, because I woke up today and watched this stuff today, and it was like they were making it sound like RFK Jr. was saying that he's considering dropping out. No, she is talking for herself. She's not talking for RFK Jr., but she's giving her honest opinion and her honest thoughts on this, which is what we need in this world, in this country, everywhere. And I definitely have a lot of respect for her, more than I had before. I was a little disappointed when Kennedy chose her. And I still am kind of like, was that the kicker? You know, is that what's going to make this thing a little bit more difficult here? But I like what she's saying here. I like how she's talking. So I'm going to play this one here. This is the long 9-minute clip. I may cut in and out. And just kind of pause it here, but this is in the full context of what she is saying about having two options there. and neither of them are Team Kennedy winning. So it's a little sad. It's frustrating. It's well, I'll just play it and see.
Do you guys see any path to victory at this point?
I mean, technically, if we can stay on the ballots, we've qualified for all the ballots now, which is like an enormous feat. Like you don't understand. The system was designed to, after Ross Perot, to keep this from ever happening again, and we accomplished it. So technically, we could win. We could absolutely win still. The problem is if you censor a candidate, as we've been censored, people don't get a chance to even hear us. There are things that could happen that would still allow us to win in November, even in this environment. And it could, you can't predict the number of variables. But as long as we remain on the ballots, we could win. The question is the risk of a Harris Walz presidency worth us staying in? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves right now is, do we trust Trump and in his personal sincerity to really do the right thing for our country and chronic disease, balance the budget, end these forever wars? Is he somebody that's going to continue to invite people like Bobby and I into the conversation? Or is he going to fall victim again to the things he fell victim to in his first administration? So we're waiting it all. It's not an easy calculation. We want what's best for this country first and foremost. And it is, it's an interesting place to be. I won't lie. Like you can't make this stuff up.
As somebody who understands that we're connected to something bigger, that spirituality and politics are intertwined, what does your gut tell you about how this is going to play out?
This election is so important, but so is the 2026 governor race in California. And my gut tells me that sometimes you need to go to the source of where all of this stuff is coming from. It's coming from right here in California. It's coming from the influence Silicon Valley and Hollywood has had on the Democratic Party. It comes from this idea that you can manipulate people with lies to get their votes. It comes from this lack of accountability that just seems to continue to spiral. And I think that what my gut tells me right now is that we just have to keep being honest. I got to just keep being honest. I got to keep focusing on what matters the most outside of party lines. I need to focus on a vision that goes beyond November. And if that means that we stay in, and there's benefits to staying in. If we get over 5% of the vote, we actually establish ourselves as a party. 71% of Americans want a strong third party with a real shot at winning. There's even public funds available if we get over 5% of the vote. So we could get, I think it's like $13.5 million in public funds to keep the party going. And that's, that's worth something. That means that we can position for a real third party election in 2028 where we don't have to go around.
I thought you were a real third party, and that's the thing. But I get what she's saying. She's talking about how crazy it is. All of the things that the Democrats are doing, not the Republicans, she's saying, but the Democrat Party, not Trump, but the Democrat Party Look at everything they've done to RFK Jr. There's no loyalty in this part. There's no respect or anything like that. It's wild. It's definitely wild. And I don't know that much about the Republican Party, to be honest. Aside from Ron Paul and aside from Trump, I really have never had any interest in the Republican Party or any of their candidates. Really, can't think of any. At least not since I was born. Let's put it like that. Since 1979. Okay. Can't think of any Republican that I was kind of excited for. And lately I've been excited for a lot of Republicans, and maybe that's because I started listening to them and started hearing what they had to say and how they talked and how they held their hearings, how they grilled the people who would show up to these hearings, that they would force to come to these hearings in some cases. You can learn a lot from those hearings, from those congressional hearings. I have. Who you can just see it sometimes, and you can tell who is on the up and up and who is not. Anyways, I got way far off the track. We'll let her keep going, but it just sounds like she's kind of defeated, but she's being real. I mean, and it's something that maybe us hopefuls, or maybe me, if I'm the last hopeful for Kennedy and Trump, something to really think about. If she's there, she's right in the thick of it. I don't know if there's I'm a 380. Come on. That's Bush League. 380. Okay. Let's keep going.
Around and spend tens of millions of dollars on ballot access, which means that we can spend all of that time and money campaigning. So, there's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency, because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision.
I think it's really cool that that's even a option, that is even on the table for someone like this, because Trump has said some nasty things about her. No, it's all campaign talk, it seems like, but still, and he's got to chill out with some of that stuff. And listen, this is fascinating to me, that she's really seriously considering this as a real viable option and willing to put this out there this late with everything that is going on. It just sounds like she kind of she's on the inside, obviously, but she kind of is like, this just isn't going to work. This RFK 2024 thing just may not work the way that we want it to. And it's like, yeah, we've known that since the very start. But it wasn't about that. It's about getting his name, at least for me, it's about getting his name on the ballot in all 50 states, and everybody can play their own part in that. That was a good thing. That is a victory. And like she's saying, if he can get 5% of the vote, they can start their own political party, get money, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't know if that's RFK Jr., if he wants to really, I don't know. I mean, you never know. I don't know him or anything, but it just doesn't seem like that's the goal, and that would not be enough for him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But she's putting it in. This is all good information.
Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Now, are you saying that if you did end up deciding to back out, that you would run for governor, or you would back somebody for governor?
Oh, you caught onto that piece, huh? I don't know yet. I think that I'd be happy to support somebody great to run for California governor, so that we can nip this dynamic.
And could that be Kennedy? Could Kennedy run? I'm curious to see if he could actually run legally. But who knows? They'll pull this same crap they pull with everyone else. We'll see.
Plastic lineage in the butt. I would consider running as well. I want to be involved in California. I think, we're the sixth largest economy in the world. We have every opportunity to get this right. We produce a third of the produce for the rest of the nation. So all of the policies I care most about really do apply to California directly. Innovation, AI, farming, clean water, water systems, efficiency of government, efficiency of cities, clear border policies. Well, closed border. It's not that, this is not rocket science. You just got to close and manage the border.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be simple and nice and straightforward for all of us? And then, you think about immigration policy differently too. And there's ways to do that at the state level. So I think that we could model California brilliantly as a shining example of how to bail out of the catastrophic state the nation is in right now. We just model California for the rest of the federal government.
All right. If you guys did end up teaming up with Trump for a unity party, what role would you play? What role would RFK play?
I am not in talks with Trump. I just want to make that clear. So it would be, I could envision a situation in which Bobby goes and he does an incredible job with, for example, HHS. And Human Health Services. It's oversees a massive portfolio of budgets, over $1 trillion budget. It really has far reach. So I think that Bobby in a role like that would be excellent. I fully support it. I have high hopes. And, just in my personal life, I'd love to see the state of science go uncensored and uncorrupted. I don't want my child to be subject to this anymore.
And this being the censorship, dehumanization.
Yeah, and the misstating of what's actually happening. Like there's all of these great researchers who want to do the science, but they can't. There's all of these clinicians that want to speak the truth, but they can't. They actually can't. They will lose their licenses if they speak outside of the central scientific paradigm.
And how do we stop that?
It's so simple. Government stops colluding with big pharma. It's really simple. And it doesn't cost any money. That's the best part. It's both good for the economy, saves money, and allows people to access the information they need to live healthy lives. We have offered to talk to everybody.
There it is. Well, that was good. Maybe I'll end with this here. I really did like the JD Vance one that she was talking about. Maybe I'll play a few more of these here.
I hear that. All right. All right. There were rumors going around that RFK was in talks with Trump, that he was in talks with the Harris camp for a potential endorsement to either of them if they could give him, I presume, a spot in one of their cabinets. Is there any truth to it? Would love to hear about that.
Definitely not in talks with Harris. Definitely never have brought up this idea of an endorsement with Harris. Definitely have never brought up a cabinet position with Harris. So those are the MSN just taking something and spinning it in a way that makes, their chosen political group look good. Fake news.
What do you think about his pick of JD Vance?
I like JD Vance. I think his statement on cat ladies was misguided. But other than that, I think he wrote a great book, Hillbilly Elegy, which really connects to a much forgotten population and a much left behind, but important and wise and soulful population of the United States that, I think is the greatest potential for revival. And I think there's, when I look at small businesses and small business economy, I think about farming. I think about rural America. I think this is the largest untapped opportunity we have right now. And I think JD Vance is grown from that, and he gets it. And I love what he's done with his career. I think that he, you know, has done some interesting. I don't love his pharma stuff. I don't love some of the stuff he's invested in. I'd like to see him explain some of it. I mean, I've not had the perfect investment record either. But I think those are things that, as long as he shows growth from, I think he is going to have great potential leading this country.
When you look at some of the pundits on him, one of the things that you'll see is a potential nefarious line drawn to Peter Thiel, that there's, if they see him as the future of the party, what does that mean in terms of corporate, governmental interconnectedness? And do you think that there's anything to that, or are these just rumors?
Look, Silicon Valley, Peter Thiel, and the PayPal mafia, they're very well known, and they're reasonably predictable. It's these are individuals that made a huge amount of success thinking through how to use the internet for optimizing financial transactions with PayPal. PayPal was a massive success. They went on to invest in a whole number of things. A lot of them really are liberty oriented, school choice oriented. They mirror many of the things you hear from liberty Republicans, which is a population I tend to like a lot. They believe in free speech. You know, some of their more transhumanist things are I don't fully align with. And you know, they're very close to Palantir, which is a massive government contractor, so that's something to keep an eye on. But overall, in terms of totalitarian, like nefarious agenda, I don't see that. It doesn't terrify me as much coming from that group. I'd love to see them talk more transparently about what, you know, their overall agenda is and hopes and goals for the American family. I think that would alleviate a lot of concern. But I find that this group of people is smaller, you know, those around Peter Thiel. They believe in individual liberties. They believe in sovereignty. I don't see them doing as many of these intelligence agency partnerships as maybe some of the other Silicon Valley groups that I'm not going to name. But I will say that if we are splitting hairs, I would much rather, I mean, obviously, I'd much rather see Bobby and I in the White House. I think we do a much better, cleaner, transparent, less corrupt job around all of these things. But if we're splitting hairs, I would say that I trust the future of this country more under the leadership of the Trump and the Thiels and the JD Vances than I do right now of the Harrises and Reid Hoffmans.
It's crazy. I mean, not crazy. That's good.
Very interesting. All right.
It's good stuff.
We've talked about what we see wrong with the Harris approach to economics.
I want to get to
what
some
do you see as the problem
Trump
with
videos.
Trump's approach?
You know, Trump's Achilles heel in his first term was really big pharma. And I don't think he understood that it would cripple his entire reputation and legacy as much as it did. And it was this perfect storm of him kind of being like, oh, I'll take the Pfizer $1 million for my inauguration event, to selling out to Fauci and Operation Warp Speed and the lockdowns. Who knew? Who knew just taking $1 million from Pfizer would open the door to one of the most catastrophic decisions the United States and a United States president has ever made in history?
Fauci or Warp Speed? I
mean, they're all part of the same package, but capitulating to Fauci's vision for the government under, you know, under Project Warp Speed, and with the lockdowns, the masking, the supply chain disruptions. Then there was the stimulus package, the $8 trillion in the stimulus package, which was really for PPP and PPE and all of the all of those. There was it was such a massive spend for something that in retrospect was not necessary at all, and started us on this trajectory.
What do you I haven't heard a lot about Trump's policy yet, economic policy, if he were to get elected this time. Have you? Is anything changed? Is he making new sounds? What's his approach?
What we're hearing from the Trump camp is very positive. We are hearing that he wants to distance himself from big pharma. We are hearing full acknowledgement that he now in retrospect should not have fallen prey to the pressures in Washington to capitulate to the lockdowns and then the needed bailouts. His record was reasonable prior to those massive mistakes in 2020. And I don't see acknowledgement. I mean, he's not doing it publicly, but privately, I don't see much acknowledgement from any political leadership that has contributed to the problem, like I've seen from Donald Trump. And I see him wanting to do things like he wants to create a container. He definitely wants to bring in an administration that, I see him working with Tulsi. Very exciting sign that he wants to de-escalate the wars, de-escalate and withdraw from the enormous amount of military spending.
I mean, she knows a lot. So I think this is a very good, well, there's only a few me.
That is the lowest hanging fruit, and he is ready to go on it.
So I think she knows a lot here, and she is talking about all these things. She has to have been involved in some of those talks that RFK Jr. had with President Trump. She must be involved in some of those too, right? She has to be. She knows a lot about what Trump has told them, and then that's good stuff. Distancing himself from big pharma, I believe, is something every Trump supporter really wants him to do. And at this point, who cares? Why not come out there and do, after everything they've done to him? Trump needs to come out more forceful, a lot more forceful, like he did on that first day. And he needs to I think he should continue that. Now, I guess, it's a voting year, and I don't understand all that politics and stuff, obviously. But so he is being a lot more calm. Even today, this may be a good time to cut to that one. But today he was more calm too. And at first I was like, oh, what's going on here? But I think it has to do with the venue. And I think it has to do with the audience. And who knows? Maybe there is some truth that he's kind of chilling out just a little bit, especially after Biden. I didn't see the Biden speech, but just the few little second clips that I saw of Biden at the DNC is screaming and yelling. It's like that's the only way that he can make any sense. If he doesn't, he just mumbles and you can't really understand him. And even when he was screaming and yelling, it was hard to understand what Biden was saying. And so maybe that's why Trump is trying to take the other way. I don't know, but I'll play a few minutes of this. You'll see what I mean. This is from earlier today in Michigan.
But it says Trump was right about everything. And if you look, whether it's the border, I've been right about everything. Unfortunately, I wish I wasn't.
He doesn't sound slow or tired or anything like that, but he's just softer. So not the rally. I've seen every rally, so maybe I think, oh, he's always going to get up there and do the same thing and do the rally thing, and that's just not the case. He is different for different audiences. He's more chill on this.
So when I return to the White House, we will stop the plunder, rape, slaughter, and destruction of our American suburbs, our cities and towns. And I think that women living in the suburbs, I keep hearing about the suburban woman doesn't like Trump. Well, I think it's a fake poll, because why would they like me? I keep the suburbs safe. I stopped low-income towers from rising right alongside of their house, and I'm keeping the illegal aliens away from the suburbs. I think that they like me a lot. I think it's a lot of fake polls. We've seen a lot of fake polls over the years. I was not supposed to win anything, and we won the big one. We won it and did a lot better the second time than I did the first. But women want to have safety. They want to have a strong military. They want to have a strong police force. They want to be in their house and they want to be safe. They don't want to have people pouring into their doors and you can't do anything about it, right? So I think that's the number one thing. I hope they like my personality. I have a nice personality, but to me, it wouldn't be very important, the personality. They want to be safe. They want people like this happy, and they want people like this taken care of properly, because those are the people that keep them safe. So we'll shut down all deadly sanctuary cities throughout the country, because all they do is they shield criminals. I mean, they basically shield criminals from prosecution. I will shift massive portions of federal law enforcement to immigration enforcement. We're going to put a lot of immigration enforcement. We're going to close down the border day one. And we are going to, just so you understand, I am not a radical at all. I'm just a common sense person that was successful in what I did because of the same thing. We are going to let people, and we want people to come into our country. A lot of people. We need them. We need them for jobs. We need them for everything. We want people to come in, but they have to come in through a process. They have to come in legally. And we can let a lot of them come in, but John, we want them to come in to our country legally. We don't want to let people come in who murdered 19 people, and then you hire that person in a plant, and all of a sudden you notice that people are being killed all over town. We want them to come in legally. On day one, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country, bigger than Dwight Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower was he was sort of a moderate person, but he hated when people poured into our country, and he was very strong on deportation. We will remove all criminal aliens immediately. All of the criminals, we start with that. We're going to get them out of here fast. Nothing good is going to happen with thousands of terrorists being in our country. You know, we had 1 month where Border Patrol was actually does a chart, and I don't believe this. I love it in a certain way, but I don't. They said in 2019, zero terrorists came in. Now, I don't believe that, but it's an awfully good statistic. But it was very few that came in. We were very tough on that. We had everybody checked so carefully. And they actually in 2019, they had zero. Now you have thousands of terrorists coming into our country. Thousands of terrorists. These are the people that blew up the World Trade.
All right, I found something even better here. All of a sudden that went into 340. Okay, let me share this. This is good stuff, even though it's Fox News, which is terrible. This lady's cool. I like her.
Hello, everyone. I only want you to.
Elon Musk now says he's ready to join a second Trump. Elon Musk now says he's ready to join a second Trump administration. Musk proposed a committee to cut government spending during his sit-down conversation with Trump on X.
I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible? Right. And just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love it.
Well, Musk took it another step further yesterday, posting this humorous picture with the caption, "I am willing to serve." Kaylee.
I love this. I know this is going to make Robert Wolf probably shudder, Robert, but I need some private sector energy in the administration. Elon Musk, I love. A guy, SpaceX, private space exploration. But let me add to that, Robert, and you probably won't like this. Vivek Ramaswamy, too. Let's bring him in to clear the deep state. Private sector energy, all for it.
Robert, since you got your name called twice.
Well, as you know, I'm all for the private sector going more into the administration. That being said, it's not so easy. Elon Musk did it once the first time around with President Trump, and it did not last too long. He left that committee quite quickly, as you know. And so, listen, I think a lot of private sector are enamored with going in until they realize that they have this forensic done on their life each and every day. And a lot of the people in Congress don't like the private sector. So it will be interesting whether this is fact or fiction.
Molly.
Yeah, I think that this election kind of comes down to people a choice between, do you like the way the country has been going, with the exception of those 4 years of the Trump administration and with the government bureaucrats who are running everything? Or do you think they're bat guano insane and you want a major change? And so having that outside energy, I think, and having people have a role in cleaning up this mess that we have in D.C., that'll be what the election comes down to.
Well, isn't that basically why Donald Trump got elected in the first place, Emily? I mean, he was outside the gates of the politics and all the rest. He was in that private sector.
Yes, what Robert Wolf articulated is exactly why we need the breath of fresh air that is the private sector. Take it from me, as a federal attorney, I saw that waste, fraud, and abuse, that every day our tax dollars are being just wasted, and there's no one worse to audit than someone already in the government. Amazing people like Adam Andrzejewski, his legacy of open the books, pulling sunlight onto the government. Yes, Elon Musk, bring it on all the way, but don't put him on the payroll, because that's the surefire way to turn him swampy.
Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me.
All right. Well, that was great. There may be just one other short little clip. This one is about maybe 3 minutes or so.
Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, former speechwriter to President Bush and Fox News contributor. Mark, great to see you. I mean, we had hiding Biden.
Yep.
Now we have duck and cover Kamala. Hiding and sliding Biden. And now we have duck and cover Kamala. She will try to get through this election cycle without giving a major interview to a real journalist.
Oh, 100%. I mean, look, she's rising in the polls right now, but it's a sugar high because all it is that she's not an octogenarian who has dementia. That's why people are excited about her. She is the least examined major party nominee probably in American history. She didn't make it through the primaries. She didn't make it to Iowa in the first time around. She didn't go through a primary this time around, which means she didn't have a debate where Democrats attacked her record. She hasn't done a single town hall with voters, taking questions from voters, hasn't done a single major interview, hasn't done a press conference, and she's only going to do one debate. Now, we all know that one debate can ruin a presidential campaign, so there's a great opportunity there for Donald Trump.
Has that happened before in modern politics where they've only done one presidential debate?
I think Ronald Reagan only had one debate with Jimmy Carter, but most of the time it's 3 debates at least, and they agreed to 2. So Joe Biden took one of the debates. Did she get a pass because the former nominee got to take one of her debates?
Oh, okay.
I think she ought to do. They agreed to 2 debates. They should do at least 2. But one debate can end a presidential campaign. We just saw that with Joe Biden. So
don't you agree that the meme campaign and the joyful stuff, that's all going to kind of fall away in the debate, and it's going to be bait Donald Trump. To me, that's what they're going to prep her to do, to bait him January 6th or Charlottesville 100%. Or go back to, oh, you don't like the way I look, or, it's going to be that kind of thing.
They're going to try and get him off his game. Look, if he goes into that debate the way he went into the debate with Joe Biden and focuses on the record, lays the traps and lets her fall into them, she is just as inarticulate as Joe Biden without the excuse of age. So you just need to give her a chance to get her off the teleprompter and let her fall on her own face. She will do it. She hasn't given anything without a teleprompter yet. So I think he's just got to be incredibly disciplined, because this may be his one chance. This may be the one time we get her clean for an unscripted moment.
Well, there's American Samoa just gave the roll call. We got the DJ up there, and Cassidy the DJ. So hopefully that will get everyone jazzed up. Mark, you wrote a great piece about the 2 factors that are most important in understanding the support that Donald Trump has and that Kamala's vulnerabilities. Really quickly, what those are.
So the 2 statistics you need to understand why all this, what Biden was saying yesterday, didn't fell flat, is on Biden and Harris's watch, Americans have gone from the highest personal savings ever recorded to the highest personal debt ever recorded. All the savings were spent down. They've now got record credit card debt, record personal debt, and record interest rates, which means they can't get out of that debt, and it's compounding every month.
That's right, real life. By the way, RFK has now, apparently they're trying to figure out whether they're going to join forces with Trump.
Wow.
That would make a huge difference.
That
yes.
would indeed. I agree 100%. Yes.
He's either deciding
That's
whether he's
cool.
going to drop out or he's going to join forces with Trump to beat the party that refused to allow him to have a real debate within the party.
That would be quite a thing to have the son of Robert Kennedy endorsing the Republican candidate.
In the end, will it have been a mistake for them to have shunned him aside as they did?
I think very much so, yes.
All right. We appreciate it. Thank
Wow.
you so much.
Thank
Mark.
you.
Okay, I was not expecting that at the very end, but that's perfect. That's a great way to really end this out here, just with one more little tiny thing, just to let people know, because I haven't done it in a few shows here, and I know I'm behind. I'm behind on this, but I do want to share this just to let everyone know where we're at right now. It's been a while. It's been a while, but there will be a total. There's a total of 538 electorals. So that's it. Out of 538, eligible right now is 517. Now you look at this map. And if you go back to the very first show, one of the early shows that we did, a lot of this was gray. Then it started turning light purple. And look how much of this is dark purple. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4 areas that are light purple. Let's go to what the color code means. 517. What are we looking at here? Dark purple is the petition complete. The light purple is the ones that are in progress. That means ballots have, or ballots, not even votes, signatures have been collected there. Gray, window not yet open. Well, there is no gray here. There are only 4 places, 4 states, well, 3 states, and 4 states. I was thinking one of them would be DC, but 4 states where it is in progress, quote unquote, in progress. Every other state, the petition is complete. But if you look at the news media, they're not talking about that. They're not talking about the fact this is a huge deal that a third party candidate is just about eligible in all. Well, he is eligible. He's got everything done. He's done everything he could possibly do by the rules in all 50 states and DC. And as he said on X or Twitter, that 8-minute clip, it's a great clip. I hope everybody goes and sees that. Follow Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on X. And he's here. He's in Pennsylvania right now. Tomorrow he's going to some other state to go fight the same thing. But yeah, I mean, the fact that Kennedy and Trump aren't really talking about each other right now does lead me to think that there is some truth to this, because I'm highly skeptical, especially after the Harris. Maybe that's why they put out the Harris thing, that false story with Harris, so that way when the real story about Kennedy and Trump possibly teaming up came out, people would kind of, I guess, gaslighting, right? Or just whatever. It would be a distraction, or be another false flag, like we've talked about many times, where they create a false theory in order to try to discredit all alternative theories. So we'll see what happens. But Trump has got to get away from some people. It sounds like he's still got some of those snakes, especially when he really started going after RFK Jr. That's when I kind of realized, like, some people are leading him down this wrong path. So I hope that he got rid of those people and fired them. And that's what I think happened. I think that's why it was very important for President Trump, to talk to RFK Jr. right after he was shot at. And you have to remember, it's RFK. Trump called RFK Jr. after this happened that night, and they talked the next day too. But there were some people, obviously, who wanted to sabotage that, which unfortunately could have been one of Kennedy's sons, or he made a bad mistake, which I don't believe. Dude, he's a bright guy. Kennedy's son, Bobby Kennedy III, is a bright guy. I'm sure all of his children are bright. But it's hard for me to believe that Kennedy III, K3, didn't know what he was doing. Okay, but anyways, the major news is right here. Kennedy is done. He's done his part. He's done everything he can possibly do. And that's why the DNC is going to try to challenge him in all of these states here. All of these states. So there it is. Until next time, hope you have a great night. And remember, Jesus loves you, and so